are back. Farid, we're back for the second season of Life in the City podcast. Hi, everyone.
Hi everyone, I hope you're excited to see us because I am definitely excited to do this second season.
Yes, and it is exciting because we have a super cool rock star as our guest today. But before we get to it, we would like to highlight some interesting stories on the Star Online. One of it is the story of fresh graduates' unemployment on the rise. Apparently, they are poorly equipped with the latest skills in the advent of rapid integration of AI. And this is across the industries. So another story is an unfortunate one. A headless Borneo pygmy elephant was found in Tawau, Sabah, which is quite gruesome, I think, if we read the story
And
on the
sad.
Star Online. Yes. But the Sabah Wildlife Department is on the job with this one. In other news, under the metro section, KL is rolling out bike lanes, but our cyclists have yet to catch up, and apparently the bike lanes are underused. So check out these stories, everyone. Farid, why don't you introduce our guest?
Thank you. So we have Mr. Azmyl Yunor with us today, who is a musician, but at the same time he's also a lecturer. I think it would be better for us to let him introduce himself and tell our listeners what it is that he does and who is he. Mr. Azmyl?
Thank you for having me. I'm primarily known as a singer-songwriter in the scene, but I'm also an academic. I teach university, but I also do a lot of research, writing, and a new term that has merged. I understood what I do is they call me an artiste researcher. So I've been doing this since the late 90s, playing music, doing stuff, and I've been academic probably about 20 odd years. So it's been an interesting journey on both sides of the coin.
So for people who don't know, Azmyl was my former lecturer as well. He taught me journalism. I have a lot to thank you for.
Welcome.
Thank you. We will explore an interesting topic with Azmyl today: aging gracefully in the Malaysian music scene. Azmyl will explore with us some challenges and triumphs of aging musicians, including the Generation X peers, which is our generation. Azmyl is a multi-hyphenated artist who will share his unique perspective, like he said, as an artist researcher and his evolving relationship with his music. Azmyl, you consider yourself as an underground indie rock singer-songwriter.
Yeah.
Tell us how you started off in this genre.
Well, I think growing up, being Gen X, that was when Nirvana and these bands started happening, and these bands were important because you realized that you could do it too. I think, and this whole DIY, do-it-yourself ethos came about. So I went to college. I never had friends who played music until I went to college. And I went to college in Subang, and my friends in Subang, they've been to jamming studios in their teens. So first time going to a studio. And we started a band, and I started writing songs, and I always liked writing songs, writing in general. And, thought the band's going to go somewhere. But then I had the opportunity to study in Perth, Australia. So went there. Of course, the band they kind of break up, but I was still writing songs. And while I was a student in Perth, I couldn't get a part-time job. Nobody wanted it. Maybe not handsome enough. I don't know. Like dishwasher, anything, you name it. Nobody got back to me. This was when there was no handphone, so nobody called back. So one day I'm feeling dejected, walking around the city, and then I saw some buskers. I think they were backpackers. And I think it's an important moment in any artist's life. I think that you build a certain self-awareness and confidence. I saw this busker and went I can do better than this.
Like a rite of passage.
Yeah, rite of passage. You gotta cross that line and apply for a permit, started busking, and best move ever. That was my music school, and we call this. I always joke on stage. I say I like to thank all the shops that rejected me, because if not for that, I wouldn't get into the deep end of this. And life throws you lemons. You don't just make lemonades, you sell that lemonade, so
Correct. One door closes, the other one opens.
Yes,
I'm going to
indeed.
steal that.
Yes, we can steal each other's cliches
Yes.
today. Before you get to your question, Farid, Azmyl, you are also a father and a husband.
Yeah.
father to 2 young children.
Yes.
This is a big balancing act. You have your work as a lecturer. You are also a singer-songwriter. How do you do this balance?
Yeah, I'm figuring it out along the way, as you say. But I think it's a lot of understanding, communication, and compromise. I
Yeah.
think with your partner, in case my spouse, my family, and I'm not the best I'm not the best at time management, so I'm learning along the way. However, I think it's also forced me to really step up my game. I need to start prioritizing. I need to plan things ahead. So one of the many ways, for example, is like being an underground musician is like gigging. I used to take any gigs that come along, but I have to be more discerning when it's happening. Maybe plan way ahead. Also make tours instead of non-stop gigging. Have gaps in between. You gotta spend time with your kids. I'm a hands-on father, so I send them to school, all that stuff. I enjoy it. One of the greatest joys of being a parent. But of course, then there's a teaching responsibility. But the thing I think about higher education, being academic, it also gives you some leeway in terms of time. I wouldn't say it's flexible, but it's not a 9 to 5 job. There's gaps in between where you can still, maybe like in this case, putting my experience as an underground musician, I put that into my academic work. So I've always written about the music subculture, and some professors tell me, why don't you write about this as your research? Because you have access to this world, which even an academic professor come in, they're outsiders looking in. You're from the scene, you have a bit of credibility. So I started doing that. That was 20 years ago, and that's become kind of my calling card as an artist researcher now. So those two worlds have come together. I wouldn't say colliding, but they kind of become one, right? And that's actually something for a long while I was finding, how do I make these two worlds meet? Because I don't teach music, I teach film and media.
Interesting.
Yeah. So yeah.
Mr. Azmyl, I find it very interesting that you're someone who performs regularly, but at the same time you're also a full-time lecturer.
Yep.
Maybe you can tell us a bit about how did you get into teaching, and how does your music help get you in that direction?
Yeah. I'm incredibly have very incredibly supportive and tolerant parents. They were professors before. They retired, so they became orchid farmers. But they were the ones who told me that, hey, you've done your degree, we've got this opportunity to send you to continue studies and postgrad. I think that it took a while convincing. I really want to get into, really stubborn. I think that's also one trait of mine. I really want to do music, but then they said okay, why don't you think about this? Then you can still do music and teach. And then after a while, talking to friends, yeah, why not? Okay, I'll do that. So I came back with a master's degree in film and music, and that's when I started teaching part-time. So it wasn't an ambition, wasn't something like I thought I'd do, but I started doing it, realizing that, hey, I can do this. The apple doesn't fall far from a tree, you could say. But at the same time, I started to realize it's a very meaningful vocation. I never saw it as a job. And I think that's something in this world we live in now. It's trying to find something that's meaningful to you, as much as giving back to the industry or community you're in. So I'm grateful, and that's why I'm still doing what I'm doing. Yeah.
I think that's an important point, finding meaning in what you do, because a lot of people feel lost and invisible.
Yeah.
Which is sad, and this is across the age group. People in their 20s, 40s, and 50s, they feel invisible due to a lot of reasons. The challenging job industry, and stuff like that. So let's get into the topic today, Azmyl. You have some unique opinions about aging in the music industry and the indie rock realm. And tell us, how do you see this playing out, based on the fact that we are all getting older. Your age, you're 48, right?
Yep.
And your experience and how it has enriched your artistry and research.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because I think it's an ongoing thing. there's always there's some form of ageism, right, in showbiz, you know.
For sure, yeah.
Yeah, and you know, I've never saw myself really part of showbiz. I think that's the thing about when I found the underground scene, the music scene. These were my friends in the band that stayed on Malaysia, and they became part experimental band and got to know the punk scene. Prior to that, I really had no compass. How do I know make music? And you know, back then it was still about sending a demo to a label and stuff. Then there must be something else. And my friends who were then part of the scene would say like, "Hey, this is legit." I got exposed to the do-it-yourself culture, right? And this is before social media, so I think that's very important. But then I realized that the values, you start to see a big gap between the values in, let's say, mainstream or showbiz and with the music subculture, which tends to be more about being the best who you are for yourself first, whereas I think industry is about what the industry needs, you know. And this is why I think in our modern, I call it post-industrialist world we live in, we compromise so much to give a piece of ourselves to the system. But this is where having the kind of DIY ideology from the music subculture really gave me a sense of identity. I think that's the main thing we're grappling with, right? Who are we? You know, I always believe, you know, like this is my personal opinion, that your job does not necessarily define who you are.
That's right.
It's who you are defines what you do, I believe. And that's why I like to use the term vocation rather than job. I think vocation means something that's a lot more holistic, you know. How you, what piece of you is in this, you know, in this work, you know. Whereas because this is a very industrialist dilemma, right?
Yeah.
That you're doing things for something else, for your minimum wage, whatever. But hey, we're human too. Like how much can I give back? How much of that is me?
Yeah.
I think that's quite important. Yeah.
That is.
Yeah.
I think we would like to know what is this term music subcultures?
Well, the music subculture, okay, you know, generally speaking, we have what we call popular culture, which is, you know, in terms of showbiz, that's your pop stars, your blockbuster films, etc. So that's, let's say, pop culture in general. But in music, you have, you know, the music industry is fairly young. It's about 100 plus years. Music prior to that were primarily very community-based, ritualistic. So a lot more closer to meaning and identity. Then capitalism came in, and the mainstream industry is about feeding what's popular. So you push what's popular, what's selling, right? Whereas music subcultures, you could say these are, the term sub is very important. That suggests that it's within it, not underneath, but within that parent culture of the pop culture. So subculture is essentially music that might not necessarily sell, for example. Music that's not commercial, you know, not to please everyone, because to be pop you must please everyone. So you kind of like become you become a lower common denominator, right? You got to bring that to the level where it's, you know, it's your daily product that people can consume. Whereas any subculture is stuff that like what I like doing, but doesn't mean somebody's gonna like it. But heck, it's me.
Yeah.
But you also don't want to shove it in people's faces, right? Music that might not resonate with them. So in terms of music cultures, yeah, for example, punk music, metal music, you know, hip hop, you know, these are even experimental music, even jazz. When you think about it, jazz was also a huge part of American music subculture in the 20th century. So a lot of interesting things begin in subculture. Then certain elements of it gets appropriated into what we can call pop culture.
That's right.
Yeah.
But the unfortunate thing is, music subcultures like the ones you just mentioned don't get the same amount of airplay as pop music does, right?
Yeah.
I something you said just now, it really resonated with me. I want to circle back to when you said there's a difference between vocation and job.
Yeah.
I think what you said, it had some truth to it when you said that, you know, most of the time people feel like I have this raw talent, but somehow I have to mold that to fit what the industry requires. But whereas for you prefer to be like, this is who I am, this is what I love doing, and I'm going to do it this way, whether or not that's what the industry requires. I think it reminds me of the saying that, you know, do what you love and you never work a day.
That's right.
Yeah, it's important. I think
I find that liberating.
It is.
It is, and something that doesn't get addressed enough, I believe, and this is why I think my vocation as a educator is important. I find that when I teach, I remind students that this is important too. Don't give 100% of yourself away. There are skills which is certain industries need.
Yeah.
But how much of that can also be about self-growth, And I think, like you said, about subcultures also tend to have a kind of negative perception in media. And that became a big part of a lot of my writing, trying to not dismiss, but disprove that a lot of it's, we have moral panics, for example, about underground music. And personally, I know people are good people. The nicest people I've ever met are people who play the most extreme music. They're the nicest people, okay? And, people might say, oh, yeah, we don't get a lot of airplay charts. Sometimes, that's not the rubric, maybe, where we come from, the underground. We're not about playing charts, it's more about community, yeah.
Does it bother you that, you mentioned something about how, pop music, it caters to a wider audience, whereas this is, I think, I would consider something to be more niche. It attracts a more niche audience. Does it bother you? Because I know, as a journalist, I love it when, a lot of people read my articles. And I'm not sure how it works for artists, but I imagine you would love it to have a lot of people be a fan. But, like you said yourself, it's a subculture, so probably not as many people are exposed to it as they are to pop music. So does it bother you?
It doesn't bother me, but I think we all begin thinking that, the whole world's going to love what I'm doing. I'm going to have hordes of fans. But I think after a while, you got to realign, like, what are you doing this for? You can be doing it to get large audiences, but, there's always opportunity cost to that.
It's back to finding the meaning.
Yeah. So you can. Nowadays you can get fantastic followers with social media numbers, but there's a price to pay to that, and there's also, it's teamwork. So you need a management team and all that stuff. So whereas like I'm actually the opposite. I'm more surprised. Whoa, there's actually people listening to what I like. It wasn't my main goal. Like I said earlier, being stubborn, I kept on doing it. But I always believe if you're doing something that's worthwhile, there will eventually be audience to it. But whether you're gonna be a millionaire and this again goes back to what are you doing it for? I think that's very important. Yeah.
Azmyl, you recently wrote a column in a news portal last year, right?
Yeah.
Titled "Aging and the Live Musician." It was very interesting what you said about particularly the focus on pop music prioritizes entertainment over artistic impression, which may hinder the growth of both artists and the audience. How do you think this contrasts with perspectives in the Western and Asian cultures when it comes to aging musicians?
Yeah, that's an interesting thing because, you read a lot about, if you read about Hollywood, there's always ageism there, right? You're not of a certain age, nobody wants you anymore. Whereas I think, let's think about it. Let's look at Asian society, right? There's a reason why we respect elders. They're also the vessels of knowledge and continuity of culture practices. So we need to reevaluate like I think the values we have when it comes to showbiz and entertainment. Is it about the young thing, the latest things, or is it also about how long can this be sustained to be meaningful? And when I wrote that piece about aging and a live musician, because being a live performer in general is very physical. People don't see that. If you see a live musician, he didn't just saunter on stage and entertain you all night. He'd come early, have a sound check. He had to find parking also. Yes. So
playing early is challenging.
It's challenging. So, but it is a very physical vocation, and I was reflecting on myself as someone who's, getting older, and a lot of my peers don't really perform much, play anymore. Is that okay? So, if the body is there's a compromise also. Like, do you stop playing, or do you find different mediums or avenues for your creative output? And I think that second point is very important. That how do how do you move on? Not giving up that, but the reality is that the physical sheer physicalness of being a performer, just like sports even earlier, right? By the time you're 30,
You're considered retired.
Yeah, retired, yeah. But sports, of course, big money there, can be sponsorships, you can do your product placement. Musicians, not everybody is there. We got some famous faces on the billboards in city, but you can see how many of them are, it's less than a handful. But that's not the path that I was interested in heading to, yeah.
Azmyl, you say that age also gives better perspective, the benefit of hindsight to your work as a researcher, because you are very interested in writing about the Malaysian and Southeast Asian music subcultures. You recently went to Taiwan and you were a guest lecturer at one of the universities there.
Yeah, I gave a lecture performance. So there's a new format. Again, this last year was interesting for me. I'm exploring this new format of bringing those two worlds, being an artist and researcher. This is where the term artist researcher started coming up. I started noticing they were introduced me as that. So I've been doing this lecture performance even before pandemic, but just locally, So where I would talk about my creative work, my collaborations, sing songs, maybe talk about the process, while also giving some other, more academic weight to the presentation. So last year I got invited to Taiwan. So I ended up doing 4 lecture performances. I came back second time, but I was also touring. So this is another thing. I wanted to kind of explore other avenues and start looking at the region. Like we always look to the West, like a lot of musicians. Oh, I want to play in Europe, America. So my band did tour US 23. That's great. It was a moment definitely, but we don't know our neighbors well enough even. Yeah. And I wanted to build that friendship and solidarity with our neighbors better. So I toured Taiwan before, so I went back again and got invited second round. I went to Jakarta, toured there, also played in Singapore. But the lecture performance also I did one in Jakarta. I realized that it's interesting because one, you have kind of a captive audience. You got students and whoever the professors are would bring them in. But then I started saying, okay, I think because I tour, so sometimes when you tour, it's a grind. You rush and perform. Sound check, back to that. But I always felt I'm in this different city, different town, different people here. I want to share more than just my songs or performance. And as an academic, I have access to universities. So this is where before I tour, I would probably ask a professor I know, and I've known people from different parts of the region. Say, hey, I'm touring here. Can I do a lecture performance at university? So to make it again more meaningful. Not that touring's not meaningful, but I wanted kind of like, okay, what else can I leverage on? I kind of is a waste going there and just go tourist traps and then go back, All right. So the end of this year, I'm going to Japan, doing a tour
fantastic.
There, doing one lecture performance, and yeah. So we'll see. It's something I'm exploring in the following years. Yeah.
That's a new term to me. Lecture performance.
Lecture
performance.
Yeah.
What does that look like, and what is it about?
Yeah, it's interesting because I picked it up from friends who are in theatre, I think among the theatre circles, lecture performances are kind of more of the norm because they talk a lot about process, getting to do the performance, And if you've been to theatre performance, at the end there's always a Q&A, You don't have that music. That wouldn't work, You don't want to do the exit on stage, goodbye, and then after the Q&A,
Terima kasih.
Terima kasih, you will leave. My limo was waiting for me, But anyway, but yeah, I've noticed in film, in theatre, the lecture, the Q&A is part of it, and there's a lot of that kind of format. There's more engagement. I think that's missing in music, and I think that's also what keeps on the myth. Don't get me wrong. I think the myth about the artist is on stage. I like that, but social media has taken away of that. Now you got to show everything going behind the stage. But I think that allure is also the mystery. But at the same time, because I'm not the academic anyway, why not? If I'm going there, and it's not the audience who comes to my shows and the ones in lecture performance are different most of the time. So, but if you're studying music, you're studying film or media or even performing arts, I think I've got something I can share. And this is so the lecture performance usually is, you have slides. I think the main thing, there's kind of slides lah, but you put photos and stuff, all that stuff. So you're sharing maybe the context. Most of the time I have to explain Malaysia a bit. Because Malaysia, when you think about it, Malaysia is very unique. We're complicated case study in terms of nationhood, if you compare it to a lot of countries around the world. And that alone makes us interesting subjects. So that will open up their eyes and ears, and that will allow me, okay, this is why I write songs about this. This in Malaysia, the industry is like this, and this is what you got to do. I don't know about here, might be different. So it's kind of sharing session more than lecture telling you what to do. Yeah.
So you are in a way, in a big way, promoting our country and how we are so unique.
True. Yeah,
right?
yeah.
No, because when you mentioned lecture performance, I imagine you're delivering your lecture, but via a song.
Breaking out in song, like a musical.
That's the mental image that comes to me.
That's parts of that too. Yeah, I do come out and but I will have certain contexts, like maybe I perform but not just a song, but I say like if I play live, I like to banter with audience, and let me banter with you right now, So it is very self-aware. It's not just breaking a song and pressing.
If my lectures were like that, I probably wouldn't have skipped that many lectures.
Me too. I wish I had lecturers like me.
Which Azmyl, so let's go back to the nuance about not necessarily being a full-time musician.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about your take on that.
Yeah, it's interesting because maybe early on, at least among our generation, Generation X's, doing music, let's say writing your own songs wasn't a future. It's not like it is now. Back then, only in the 90s we started, people started appreciating Malaysian musicians writing your own songs. Before that, it's all composers writing for pop singers. So being somebody who, performing, writing your own material, and then the indie thing started happening in 2000s and became legit. Almost like the industry now almost expects that, So actually, as I explained earlier, interesting things happen in the margins, in the subculture. Now a lot of music industry actually is picking up on a lot of the kind of practices that come from the subculture. They don't acknowledge it, but it's there. All right, a big part of that is I started seeing as the years progressed, a lot of younger musicians saying like, I want to do music full time. Okay, but it's all the best. I mean, like go for it. I'm not to judge anyone, but there's a lot of things you have to understand that compromises that comes with doing anything full time.
As we saw from the pandemic.
Yes, we saw from pandemic. So the big part of that was also like I don't think there's any shame in doing other things to support your artistic practice too, if it keeps your artistic practice, to me at least, pure. That was probably more important to me. I did for a while. I did full time for a while, and then I realized, certain things I don't want to do, but I've got to do. And it becomes a job. But because I come from the underground, it's like maybe I don't want this as a job. I'd rather have something else to support it, so I can keep, and I have a certain fair degree of independence and ownership. I think that's very important. That's probably another thing that defines the music subculture.
Yeah.
The ownership and independence. You do things, you fund yourself. You don't depend on others for funding, because you ask money from someone else, they want something back in return. It's not free lunch, Yeah. So I think that I find very interesting, that like the need to do full time. I don't think in this world now you don't have to do anything necessarily full time.
That's right.
Yeah,
side hustles.
Side hustles. I think as human beings we can do so many things. Don't let like I said, the post-capitalist world define us, because it narrows us down into these things, right?
Yeah.
I think now is a time to kind of counter those narratives, and that's why I see myself as an artist researcher, as countering this broader narrative that we assume is common sense, and they're not really. Let's poke some holes in that balloon. Yeah. Yeah.
What do you think are some of the challenges, particularly among emerging artists in today's digital age with social media? You just launched your own TikTok.
Yeah.
How's that
guys,
going?
sign up, huh? It's tiring, man. I mean, I think I wouldn't say I'm not a fan of social media. I love
Neither
YouTube.
am I.
Yeah, but it's almost a necessary evil. You got to have it.
That's right.
So in the past, like in the 90s, 2000s, the Star would publish gig listings in Star 2. That was my education about the Malaysian music scene. The articles were there, but slowly those spaces get erode and disappear because social media started happening. And a big part of that now is like the artist has to also, you got to be your own press officer, you got to be your own kind of your own hype machine. And And what I find now tricky is that there's a lot more you do more hyping than the actual work, you know.
Yeah.
To the point, I remember when I released this album, John Bangi Blues, in 2020, like friends would say like, it's like, well, Azmyl just appears with an album. It's like, then I reflect on it. Well, yeah, because then I start seeing social media. You gotta do and the recording studio. Hey guys, writing Tucson, you know, all that stuff. And I don't want to do that. I rather like, boom, here's the dish. You know, I rather do that. You know, but I guess now people want to find more about you, who you are.
Yeah.
I think, but you can curate that. So even though I've launched all these different social platforms, I curate the kind of things I do post. I don't have to pander necessarily. And like I said earlier, I like a bit of that mystery, you know, like let's keep a bit of that, you know. I think maybe that's my niche. You know, I don't post too often, yeah. But we got algorithms. That's dangerous.
Mr. Azmyl, I'm kind of curious about this point you raised about how, you know, there's more focus on hyping yourself up rather than producing a good product. But you know, social media is not going away anytime soon. You know, I know you don't like it. I don't like it. But the fact is, they're gonna stay. They're here to stay. How do you foresee that will change the way that artists approach their arts, or how do they connect with their audience? How will that change things? How do you foresee?
I don't think it changes the artistic process. Like the great filmmaker David Lynch just passed away recently.
Yeah.
And he's a great advocate. He loves Twitter, but he loves Twitter. He doesn't care about the rest, the other platforms. You can make social media, you make it to work for you. You don't pander. But if you want like 1 million followers, then you have to pander lah. You gotta do the things, you know. The images have like a clickbait, like you gotta do certain motions, and then the algorithm will get it. And as this technology increases, it will just make us into like puppets lah. So you want 1 million followers, go for that.
Become beholden.
Yeah. So I think the lesson is like, don't be too beholden to the medium, you know. I think makes people more aware what people should be more aware about what it is you do as an artist. You should reflect on that, not just trying to keep on show it, you know, because you know there's no use of turning back. Ride the wave, you know, and I'm figuring out along the way too. To be honest, I'm no expert, you know, but I find it interesting. Social media, yeah.
Let's wrap this up with your legacy, Azmyl, with John Bangi Blues. How do you come up with that name for that album?
Okay,
you live in Bangi.
Yeah, it's a long story. This was like when I first started gigging in this venue called No Black Tie. It's like in 2001. One night, and this was interesting. It's before there was a real singer-songwriter circuit. So this venue would have everybody, filmmakers, artists, producers. They would hang out there. So one day I was sound checking, and lo and behold, the sound person is the great producer, Mr. Roslan Aziz. You know, it's like, wow. So nervous lah, you know, like, but you know, I went sound check, so did my sound check. But he never asked my name. Then he said, "Bang, kau dari mana?" It's like, Bangi. Then he just said, "Okay, nama you John Bangi." So that stuck me for a long time, 20 odd years, you know.
Wow.
John Bangi. I thought, why do you call me John Bangi? Is it because I'm from Bangi? Like, is it like John Denver or whatever? Like, you know, because John is
name.
Yeah, John is like a generic name you give like a person, John, you know.
John Bangi.
But you can't remember someone's name.
John. Yeah. So that stuck with me for a long while. So then the songs I started writing for this album, John Bangi Blues, came from a very personal place because my kids were born. I had, you know, and I started being more aware about consumerism and this world we're in. And I wanted to write something about maybe my own blues, but also having a fictional character like David Bowie has, you know, personas and stuff. So how do I make something that's closer to? I do folk music, folk rock. So something that's more localized. So then it came about. Yeah, this is my blues, but I put a character, John Bangi. It could be any middle class Malaysian
Who wants to associate?
Associate with it. You know, the blues we got to deal with now, whether it's life and living and politics, whatever it may be. So that's how that came on. And you know, I like to drop local names. I think that's something a lot of Malaysian artists don't do enough. In films, great. I think there's a lot of local settings. But music, you don't see somebody saying, you know, dropping a pop singer dropping a line about, you know, I don't know, like semenye in the line of a song, right? So I wanted to do that a lot, and that became a lot part of what I do actually, a lot of my songs and writing. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's fun. I mean, like we had Mat Saleh do it all the time. They
Exactly.
put California.
Name drop,
Exactly.
Name drop. Why can't we do it?
Exactly. That's what I always thought. It's like,
I mean,
why it doesn't happen here? Yeah.
It's
California
creative
came back.
license.
Yes.
Yeah. Azmyl, you mentioned something about re-releasing your early albums in a cassette and in cassettes. Is that right?
Yeah.
We want to just give us a this perspective on the resurgence of physical music formats.
Okay, that's interesting. I think again that's an industry narrative lah. That the word resurgence. It's always been there. For example, in the underground scene, cassettes are always popular. CDs, we still produce CDs. I made this album on CDs because when we tour, you gotta have some merch.
Right.
You know, I can't go to Japan and say, hey guys, like my Spotify, and get what 0.0001 cent for one play. You know, so we have merch, make T-shirts. So that the subculture, the underground, that's always been alive. But I think the surge in popularity is because I think the younger generation started realizing and appreciating physical things. You know, I think we're human. We're located. And vinyl is definitely the big thing lah. It's cool, it's nice, but it's a bit more pricier. I had students jump from like streaming straight away to vinyl. I told them, hey, you want to buy my CD? So you got vinyl. I was like, wow. No,
it's a collectible, right?
Yeah, it's a collectible.
Yeah.
I think that's the thing. We still, like it or not, that can't be replaced with. You can't show off your playlist on a shelf.
Yeah.
You got CDs and vinyl, you can put it there. You know, you can do your Instagram. What are you gonna do with streaming? You take a photo, a screenshot of your playlist. That's not cool. So, but yeah, I'm re-releasing it. I guess you could say I'm in legacy mode. I've had bodies of work from 1998 to now, and trying to also keep it limited. With cassettes, you can print lesser numbers, and you know, if you keep it limited, that's when people will rush to it. You know, so I'm gonna re-release my 2005 EP, 10x EP, which was covered here in the Star back then. Very important. That was like my bridge between being the underground and kind of like going big a bit. But I thought about what format should I have it. I had it on CD before. So I thought doing cassette then. But it will come a download code, don't worry. Most of the time, like vinyl, yeah. But higher quality downloads, you know, files. And I think that's a good point you raised there. Is also I think about like, you know, the music platform streaming, they don't generate enough income, even for big stars abroad. You know, a lot of big stars in even America, you know, they start taking down their stuff. But I think it's still important. As a music fan, I love streaming because you have access to music that you never had the chance or couldn't afford to buy CDs or vinyl from. But at the same time, as an artist, you gotta be aware of it. Like I said, using it for your own benefit. Like I have my old albums on Spotify, for example, but John Bangi Blues isn't there at the moment. But I'll probably start dropping in maybe one like as singles. But I understand that's how that algorithm, that system works.
Dropping music as singles,
singles.
Not so much the whole, not so much plonking the whole album.
You plonk album, you just people just won't dig into it. So that's in the works. We'll see that. Legacy mode. Making more merch from keeping it sustainable.
We look forward to that. All the best, Azmyl.
Thank you.
I'd say, Farid, we learned a lot about the indie music industry and the evolution of this type of music, music subcultures, and the nuances, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I mean, if it were up to me, this probably be a 5-hour podcast because there are so many questions I want to ask you.
So many questions, yeah.
But there's only so much time we are allotted. I hope it has been as illuminating to our listeners as it has been for me. Trust me, I have so many questions. But yeah, I'll be looking you up after this, Mr. Azmyl.
Cool.
Yes, and as we mentioned before, I've known you, Azmyl, for a long time, and I'm so impressed with your hard work and your passion.
All right.
And creating meaning in what you do, which is very important.
Thank you.
We have an exciting ending to this podcast. Azmyl is going to perform for us.
Yay!
What song are you going to perform, Azmyl?
I'm going to do a song called It's Not Easy from John Bangi Blues. And this is to all of you out there, you know, do what you got to do. Keep on doing it. It's not easy, but, you know, I always believe a silver lining to everything.
That's right. Thank you, Azmyl. We know we'll be entertained.
Thank you.
We'll see you guys in the next episode of Life in the City podcast. And remember to check out our YouTube channel at The Star Online and thestar.com.my/metro. Thank you, Azmyl.
You're welcome.
This was really exciting.
Okay.
It's not easy being different. It's not like you meant it to be this way, but it's made you tough and patient. You used to feeling dismayed. What don't kills you makes you stronger. What don't kills you makes you stronger. It's not easy being patient. It's not like anyone is anyway. Turning rocks into diamonds. That's your calling, that's your trade. What don't fills you feeds your hunger. What don't fills you feeds your hunger. So wave goodbye to the miseries of yesteryears and take a ride. Well, what you've gained and turning grit to gold. You save your soul. What don't kills you makes you stranger. What don't kills you makes you stranger. So wave goodbye to the miseries of yesteryears and take pride. Well, what you gain and turning grit to gold. Save your soul. So say goodbye to the miseries of yesteryears and take pride. Well, what you've gained and turning grit to gold. Save your soul. Save the soul. I say.